Hi everyone, this is Nim Holkar. Welcome to Sunday Chats with Nim. I am going to wait for a few moments to make sure that everyone logs in before we get started with today's topic. Now, as you log in, please post in the comments a quick hi or a hello, or just let me know if the audio is clear so that we can get started ASAP with all the wonderful stuff that we are going to be talking about this Sunday afternoon. Hi Esther, good afternoon. Hari Mohan Namdev says all good, very great. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so today we're talking about speaking up in meetings. And for those who don't know who I am or what I do, my name is Nim Holkar. I'm an author, motivational speaker, and a life coach based in Australia, in Sydney. And Sunday Chats with Nim is my weekly Facebook Live show where I bring you topics that will help you get ahead both in your personal as well as professional lives. Now, while we're waiting for everyone to log in, I just wanted to say a very quick, very warm thank you to all my page followers. So recently, the page crossed 6,000 likes, and I had put up a post about a fortnight ago saying that, I asked a question, do you have time to say a quick hello? And then I had written that while I see and read all your lovely comments and I enjoy all the likes that you put on my articles, etc., I don't get much opportunity to interact with most of you on the page. And so I had put out a question asking everyone if you are enjoying the articles and posts and videos that I have been putting up. And I'm absolutely overwhelmed by the sheer response and the outpouring of love and encouragement and support from everyone. It was such a joy to read all your responses, and I was so humbled to know that you're all enjoying the content that I've been putting out there. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. As a motivational speaker, a lot of people expect that I wake up in the morning supercharged and super motivated. That is absolutely not the case. Even motivational speakers need to find their sources of motivation. And I want to let you all know that it is you, all you lovely people, who keep me motivated. Okay, who inspire me to keep writing new stuff every single day. So thank you again. I couldn't do it without your support. Excellent. So we've got a few highs here. So I'm just going to say hi back to everyone. Ram Kumar says, hi Ram, how are you? Hi Renu. Hi Suma. Hi Archana. Hi Poonam. Poonam says, happy Sunday to you too, Poonam. Alrighty, so let's dive right in with today's topic, which is speaking up in meetings and how important it is, this whole art of speaking up, for you to be able to get ahead in your career. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people, particularly people I meet in the course of my career as a coach, I find that a lot of people are reluctant to speak up in meetings. Well, I know that public speaking is a source of fear for many, many people, but this whole thing about speaking up in meetings seems to strike terror in the hearts of so many. I want to put out a question to you all. Just take a moment to think about it and type it in the comments, because as you know, I love my sessions to be interactive. It's not always just me talking for 20 or 30 minutes. I like you to share your insights as well. So let me put out a question to you. Why do you think so many people are afraid to speak up in front of their peers or colleagues in a meeting? So that's the question I'm putting out to you all. Why are so many people reluctant or scared to express their opinions in a meeting? I'm just going to wait while you think of an answer and type down a reason or two. I mean, I'm going to tell you as well what I consider are the common reasons, but I'd like you to think about it for a moment and write down in the comments why you think so many people stop themselves from speaking up when they are in a corporate meeting environment. So Sujata says lack of confidence. Very good reason, Sujata. One of the most common reasons for not speaking up in a meeting is lack of confidence, of course. Anything else? Archana says, you're amazing, Nim. Oh, thank you, Archana. That's very sweet of you. Arvind says, hi, Nim. How are you? I'm very well, Arvind. Thank you. How are you? All right, so the question I've put forward to all of you is, why do people hesitate before they speak up in a meeting? And Sujata has already come up with one good reason, which is lack of confidence. What else? There are so many other reasons. What else? Sometimes English language is not their first language. Yeah, good point, Sujata again. English not being the first language, very often people hesitate because they're not sure they have the vocabulary that is strong enough to help them put their opinion across. Esther says English is not their first language for many, so they might make mistakes while speaking in English. Yes, very good point, Esther. That is true, because it's not their first language. They don't have the confidence to express their opinions. Good point. And Archana says fear of being told off. Yeah, that's a very good point too. You know, fear of rejection, fear of being judged, fear of humiliation. So many fears stop us from actually speaking up in meetings. Another reason people don't speak up is because they think that whatever opinion or insights they're about to offer are perhaps not worth it, or they're perhaps not good enough. So why bother expressing it? Because the idea that you have inside your mind is not that great anyway, right? And that's why you stop yourself from expressing that particular opinion. Suma says fear of not asking the right question. Good point, Suma. And the funny thing about this fear of not asking the right question is we've already decided in our minds that whatever it is that we are going to ask is wrong, and whatever it is that anyone else is going to ask is right. We make these assumptions and we make ourselves miserable. So we really need to start questioning our inner critic that is stopping us from doing so many wonderful things in our lives. I mean, honestly, I think many of us would do miracles every single day if it wasn't for that inner critic, which is the voice inside your mind that pipes up just before you speak up or just before you take a step outside your comfort zone. That inner critic is honestly overworked, and it is time that inner critic goes off on an annual holiday and leaves you alone. That's pretty much it. And Serena says fear of being judged. Absolutely right, Serena. Yeah, fear of judgment is very, very strong among a lot of people, which stops them from speaking up. And Sujata says sometimes in a past experience, the idea was not taken into account. Yeah, good point. In the past, you might have said something and people might have burst out laughing, or you might have said something and you might have been pulled up because of it. And that one experience can color your judgment and can stop you from expressing your opinions forevermore. And Esther says shyness. Absolutely right. So we've all come up with some fabulous points. Have I missed saying hi to some people? And Usha says sometimes they're not sufficiently engaged. Good points, Usha. They are not engaged in the conversation, and therefore they have no clue at what point in the meeting to actually speak up. And Kale says hi. Hi, Kale. How are you? And Arvind says first time bad experience when they start speaking. Very true. Yeah, a past experience, Arvind, like you rightly said, can stop people from, taking their chances in future because, like they say, once bitten, twice shy, that kind of thing. Fabulous. So we have a whole set of reasons why people don't speak up. Now I'm going to give you one singular reason why all these reasons, while they are valid and while they are very, very natural, we must put those aside and we must convince ourselves to open our mouth, to speak up and to express our opinions in a meeting. Why it is so important. I'm going to give you one singular reason, something that I learned the hard way in my 25-year-long corporate career here in Australia. Many people who are technically skilled, or many people who are very, very good at what they do, firmly believe deep in their hearts that their work will speak for itself. They firmly believe that because they're so good at what they do, because they're so skilled, that is more than enough, that the work will speak for itself. So I want to burst that bubble today itself. While it is true that you are technically skilled, while it is true that you've got all the degrees and qualifications and you may be super talented and far more talented than anyone else in your team, I want to let you know that even if your work speaks, it is not a voice that is loud enough. For you to make a difference in your career, you must also speak up at key moments in your corporate journey. Because if you just have your head down and you keep sitting at your desk and working away, and even if you're creating miracles in that work, it is not enough to make you visible amongst the people who matter. It's not enough to make you visible among the movers and shakers in your industry. For you to become visible in the workplace, for you to be considered for potential promotions, you must be remembered. And the only way you're going to be remembered, or rather one of the best ways you're going to be remembered, is if you speak up and if you have interesting insights to offer and if you have an opinion about the things that are happening around you in your company. So if you've been wondering if it's worth the effort to start speaking up in a meeting, let me assure you it is. It's the best way to start becoming visible. It's the best way to stop being invisible. Because haven't you noticed, let me ask you this question, haven't you noticed that sometimes people who are not even half as talented as you are, who are not even half as experienced as you are, or half as smart as you are, they seem to go ahead. They seem to get the promotions that you feel they don't really deserve. Now, why is that? Have you noticed that happening to so many people? That they may be not as smart as you, they may be in the company even not as long as you've been in the company, and yet they seem to race ahead. And yet they seem to do complete magic with their careers. And you're left wondering, hold on, I'm more educated, I'm more skilled, I've got more degrees, I've got more experience, etc., etc., etc. And yet I'm stuck at the same desk for the last 10 years. And this person who's been there just for a heartbeat has gone ahead and got all the lucrative projects. Haven't you noticed that happen? Like I certainly have in my corporate career. Now, the reason these people are racing ahead is not because they know some secret mantra. It's not that, they have a skill that's, hard to acquire. It's just they've learned the art of making themselves visible. And trust me, one of the simplest ways to stop being invisible in the workplace is to start speaking up in meetings. You have a voice, my friend, and you must use it. So all the excuses you've been giving yourself so far, see, while I call them excuses, I really feel for you because I've been there and I felt those same fears. So I know that those fears are very real. But I also told myself a long time ago that I need to start recognizing the excuses I am giving myself. Because when we stop ourselves from stepping outside our comfort zone by telling ourselves that, people will laugh at me, or my idea will be considered silly, or, anything else, it is an excuse. And the sooner we start recognizing that it is an excuse, the faster will be our progress in our corporate journey. Don't wait for anyone else to tell you that you're giving excuses. You must start recognizing those yourself. Personally, every single day, I'm always on the lookout for any excuses I am subconsciously giving myself. When I'm in a high stakes meeting and I hesitate before speaking because I'm worried that I'll make a fool of myself, I'm now able to instantly tell myself, Nim, watch out. That's an excuse you're giving yourself. You're shortchanging yourself. So you better open your mouth and you speak up. So I speak up even while I'm terrified. And that's the secret. Remember that quote that I often say at the start of my workshops? Many of you who've attended my workshops may be familiar. with this quote that I had read somewhere a long time ago. You can be brave and afraid at the same time. When I was younger and when I was learning the art of speaking up in meetings, I used to speak up even while I was terrified. So I don't wait for the terror and the fear to vanish before I open my mouth. I embrace that fear and I take it along with me and I speak up despite my heart beating wildly. Okay, so just read a comment or two here. Archana says, and yes, they have that effective communication skills and they get their job done. Yeah, the people who are getting ahead are people who have mastered the art of visibility. They've mastered the art of getting the job done. Now, you obviously are all getting the job done, but perhaps you also need to brush up on the skill of speaking up and having your voice heard. All right, so now I'm going to give you some tips on how to overcome this fear of speaking up in a meeting. While you're still practicing, the one thing that's going to help you is to speak up while you are not in the spotlight. Let me repeat this sentence because it is super, super important. And it is the discovery I made many years ago that helped me overcome my fear of public speaking. Now, if you're wondering, Nim, but you're an international speaker, surely you didn't have any stage fright and surely you didn't have any fear of public speaking. Let me tell you something. Growing up, I was terrified of speaking in front of a group of even 4 or 5 people, let alone hundreds and thousands of people. I had terrible stage fright. I wouldn't even go up on stage to collect a certificate in school. I was that scared. So I know that public speaking is a skill that can be learned. So hopefully that makes you feel better, because me personally, I was terrified of speaking in public. And today I'm not. So I know that it is something that can be learned. And I'm talking from experience. So the point I'm just making is, while you're still learning the art of speaking up, the important thing to remember is to start practicing while you are not in the spotlight. Now, what do I mean by being in the spotlight? Let's say your manager makes direct eye contact with you in a meeting and asks you a question directly. So it's a question that's specifically addressed to you. Okay, there was a call that just came in and hopefully it has not disconnected my session. If you can still hear me, just drop a quick comment to say all is well. Okay, I thought I had switched off my calls, but I hadn't. Okay, so let's say your manager asks you a question directly. Let's say a manager is looking at me and says, Nim, what do you think about this specific point that we've just discussed? Now, there may be 10 people that are in the meeting, but this question is directed exclusively to me by my manager, which means all eyes are on me, which means I am in the spotlight. Now, when you are in the spotlight and when all eyes are focused on you, it's so easy to freeze. It's so easy for your mind to go completely blank and to not know what to say. So your mind going blank is actually a physical reaction to the fear of public speaking. Now, if you've not been practicing public speaking and you're suddenly put in the spotlight, of course you're going to freeze. Of course you're not going to know what to say. Of course, all those fears of perhaps English not being your first language and you not having a vocabulary that's strong enough, that might come in the way. Or you might think, oh my goodness, I don't have any ideas that are worthy of being expressed. All those fears start coming because you're in the spotlight. So what do? You start practicing speaking up in meetings while you are not in the spotlight, which means speak up before anyone sends a targeted question your way. Speak up while no eyes are looking at you. Speak up while the attention is not on you. Contribute in some small way to the conversation. What happens when you do that? You start getting used to the sound of your voice. That is very important in public speaking. If you never open your mouth and you never speak up, then when the spotlight's on you, just a croak will come out because you're so scared of your own voice. But if you allow yourself to speak up in small bursts throughout the conversation, you get used to the sound of your voice, and then you're not that uncomfortable with how your voice sounds. You're not that uncomfortable with hearing yourself express your insights and your opinions. That's very, very important, and no one teaches that in public speaking, and I'm so surprised by that. Now, it is something I learned through trial and error. When I started speaking up in meetings, even if it was, just or really, even if it was just small phrases that I was inserting into the conversation, just hearing my voice, even though initially I was a bit uncomfortable, over time I got used to hearing my voice. I got used to saying something that I believed in, so that when finally the spotlight was on me, I had already spoken a few times in the meeting, and therefore less chances of me going blank. Now, you just have to accept that this thing works. Try it out. Even if you're thinking at this given moment as you're listening to me, oh, it's easy for Nim to say, she's been speaking for years, this kind of thing never works for me. Park aside all those doubts. Try it out. Speak in small bursts. Speak small phrases. Get used to the sound of your own voice, so that when you're finally in the spotlight, when your manager or your supervisor, your team leader or your colleague stares at you and asks you a specific question, you're not as terrified. Archana says that's a great point. So Archana, maybe when you're in a meeting and someone says, Archana, we've all been talking about this. What's your stand on this? Imagine if Archana had not spoken up in the last 25 minutes and suddenly she had to get used to hearing her own voice. Archana might be terrified because she's not spoken up for 25 minutes, right? So instead, practice from the start. When no one is looking at you, no one has asked you a targeted question, speak up. Okay, so one trick is to speak up in the first 5 to 7 minutes of a meeting. I have always done this. Well, rather than always, I've done this ever since I figured out this secret to speaking in public. Speak up in the first 5 to 7 minutes. This does not mean that, Nim said speak up in the first 5 to 7 minutes, so I should just speak up for the sake of speaking up, even if I don't make any sense. No, I don't mean that. I mean that whatever it is that you choose to speak about, make sure it is relevant, but try to speak up in the first 5 to 7 minutes. Why do I say this? I say this because the longer you wait, the more terrified you will be. The longer you wait, the more time you have for self-doubt to creep into your subconscious. And when self-doubt creeps into your subconscious, your inner critic suddenly wakes up and says, oh, Nim, don't speak up. You're going to make a fool of yourself. If you wait for 10, 15, 20 minutes, and heaven forbid, if you've waited for 30 minutes before saying your first word, you are going to be frozen. You are going to be frozen. Your mind is going to go completely blank. So don't make that mistake. Speak up in the first 5 to 7 minutes. Now, how can you speak up? What should you talk about? One of the easiest things while you're still a sort of a beginner speaker, or while you're still sort of mastering the art of speaking up in meetings, one of the best ways to contribute to a conversation is to validate someone else's point. Okay, so let's say a gentleman called Tom is speaking in this meeting, and I'm listening to what Tom is saying. I've been listening to his insights and the opinions he's expressed so far. And let's say that I agree with one specific point that he has just made. And let's say I'm terrified of expressing an opinion, or let's say I don't have an opinion to express. But how do I make my voice heard? How do I make myself visible in that meeting? How do I make people notice me, that I exist? I validate Tom's point. So once he finishes speaking, I will pipe up and say, I completely agree with what Tom has just said. And I believe that the point he has put forward will be beneficial for the bottom line of our company. That's it. As simple as that. I've simply validated what a co-worker has just said. I have given weight to his opinion. Have you noticed that I have not expressed a whole brand new opinion of my own? I'm not trying to be a thought leader in this meeting. But someone else has said something that I agree with. I open my mouth and I express support for that particular idea. Now, when I express support, my voice gets heard. People notice me and they start thinking, oh, okay, Nim's a team player. Nim has something to contribute. So that's one trick of speaking up. The second thing you can do while you're still sort of finding your feet where speaking in a meeting is concerned is you can ask a question. Asking a question is not as scary as expressing a completely original opinion. So let's say the same Tom has said something and perhaps I need a bit more clarity on what he's just said. One good way to have my voice heard is to actually express curiosity and ask a question. For example, I could say, Tom, that's a very interesting point you just made. Can you expand on it a little bit more so that I understand it a bit more clearly? Or you could say, can you shed a bit more light on what you just said? Or you can say, or can you give an example about this point that you've just made? That's it, as simple as that. You've simply asked a question linked to a point one of your colleagues has made. What it shows is that you are engaged in the conversation. It shows that you are curious. It shows that you are concerned about the well-being of your company's project. It shows that you are a valued team player. So the two things that I've just said is when you're a sort of a novice speaker is to either validate someone else's viewpoint that has just been expressed in the meeting or to ask a question. And once you start becoming more confident with hearing your own voice, then you can also start expressing original opinions of your own. Okay, that's when you become super confident. Now, I know that there are many situations where you've stopped yourself from expressing an opinion thinking, oh my God, that's such a dumb idea. I'm sure everyone's going to laugh. I better not say anything. And the next minute, I mean, you don't say anything. You just swallow those words. And the next minute, the person sitting next to you expresses exactly what you've been wanting to say. And everyone applauds their opinion. Everyone is super impressed with the idea that they have expressed. And you're kicking yourself thinking, damn, why didn't I say something? Have you noticed that happening? So many times, right? In the past, I know that I have stopped myself from saying something because I was worried that it will sound really silly and I don't say it. And the next minute someone else says it, exactly what I was going to say. And then they get all the applause and I'm left thinking, well, why didn't I say something? The only way you're going to find out if your ideas are ridiculous is by expressing them. Because chances are that most of the ideas you have somewhere at a subconscious level, you know you need to express it. If it was really that dumb, if it was really that ridiculous, you wouldn't be constantly second guessing yourself. If I get a really dumb idea, I just shut it down and I don't think about it. But when you have that seesaw happening in your brain, should I say, should I not say, should I say, should I not say? Chances are pretty high that whatever it is that you have to express is pretty sound. So you might as well say it. Even if you say something that is wrong, you're going to learn a very valuable lesson. You're going to learn the truth. You're going to learn what is right. So either way, you win. If you speak up and you get the applause, you win. If you speak up and you make a mistake, you still win because you learn from your mistakes. I am someone who's passionate about learning from my mistakes, which is why I don't look at any experience from a negative perspective. I'm not scared of making mistakes because the ego doesn't come in. I'm more concerned with finding out the truth. I don't want to go through the rest of my life believing something that is false. I would rather say it, make a mistake, be corrected, and find out the right way to think about a certain issue. So stop being so afraid of mistakes. Okay, so I know a few people have said express some opinions. Let me just read that. Ridhila says, sometimes it is difficult to find a chance to express your opinion, especially in a meeting with a little dominant colleagues. Very good point, Mridula, and I'm glad you brought it up. So for those of you who've not read that comment, Mridula Deshmukh has just put forward a very valid point. It is very, very difficult sometimes, particularly if you're a bit of a shy person or you're a bit of an introvert, etc., or you're new to the company. It is sometimes difficult to find a place in the conversation for you to express your opinion because more dominant personalities or more aggressive personalities pipe up, speak up over you. So one trick, Mridula, that I can suggest is, let's say people are talking about problem X, okay? And now when everyone, let's say all the dominant personalities in the meeting room have finished talking about problem X, and then one more dominant personality suddenly starts talking about problem Y, that's when you need to pipe up. No matter how terrified you are, no matter how shy you are, no matter how much of an introvert you are, you must at that point pipe up. But there is an art to it. Let's say the same person, I'm just going to use the same name again. Let's say Tom, this person Tom, let's say he is quite a loud personality and he's about to take the conversation in a whole new direction. But I still want to express my opinion about problem X that everyone's been discussing for so long, but I haven't had a chance yet to have my voice heard. At this point, before Tom takes it off on a whole different tangent, watch the body language, okay? I'm not frowning, I'm not aggressive, I'm not apologetic. I just give a smile and say, hey Tom, I want to hear everything that you're about to say. But before we go off on that angle, I just want to quickly share my insights on problem X. That's it. Even if your voice shakes when you say it, even if you get teary as you say it, because these are all physical reactions to the fear of speaking up. I know a lot of people who get teary by the sheer effort of trying to interrupt someone who is more domineering than them. So Mridula, you need to find that point in the conversation where somebody is about to take it off in a whole new direction and you will never be able to express an opinion about what was just discussed. At that point, you can say with a smile, I really want to hear everything you have to say about problem Y, but before we go off onto problem Y and before we wrap up problem X, I just want to quickly put in my thoughts about it. Say it with a smile, say it soft body language, and most people will stop to listen. But if you let that opportunity go because you think, oh my God, all these people are smarter than me, or they're more dominating than me, or blah, 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 you lose that opportunity forever. So hopefully that answers your question, Mridula. And Amit says, how to deal with someone who speaks before one finishes or keeps up speaking and doesn't care if someone else is also trying to speak. Very good point, Amit. So what I call that is people who interrupt you before you have finished expressing your thought. And I've met many like that in my lifetime. And I have learned the art of letting them know that, excuse me, please don't interrupt me before I have finished talking. So one mistake that many people do when they are interrupted by others, because, they've decided, oh, from today I'm going to be assertive, and from today no one's going to take me for granted. So what do? The minute somebody interrupts them, they decide, they put up their hand and say, excuse me, I haven't finished speaking yet. Please don't do that. It is one of the worst things you can do in a professional setting. It is incredibly rude, and it doesn't win you any brownie points. When I am interrupted by someone else, what I do is I acknowledge the importance of their viewpoint. So I'll say, Tom, I know what you're about to say is going to be really interesting. I don't want to miss out on a single word that you're about to say, but can I quickly finish my thought first? I express it as an opinion. I don't say, excuse me, I haven't finished speaking yet. I acknowledge that whatever it is the other person has started talking is important. I'm sure it's a valid point. So Tom, I'm sure that what you're about to say is very important and valid, but can I quickly finish what I am saying? When you do this enough number of times, Amit, trust me, people will realize that there are boundaries that they cannot cross. When I'm interrupted in a meeting, and nowadays that doesn't happen very often because for the large part, people have realized that, to let Nim finish talking. But that is the kind of personal brand you need to build so that you reach a point where people recognize that if so-and-so is talking, we're going to let him or her finish their thought, because whatever they have to offer, I'm sure, is going to be of value. If you allow people to keep interrupting you, no one is going to take you seriously. People are going to take you for granted, and the only one we can blame is ourselves, because we allow people to interrupt us, almost as though we're silently conveying the message that, yeah, of course, interrupt me. My viewpoints are not important. Your viewpoints are far more important, which is why it's okay to interrupt me. Well, it is not okay to interrupt you. It is not okay to interrupt you. Why? Because your opinions are as important, if not more, than anyone else's in the room. So why should you be interrupted? And the only people who can take responsibility for making sure that we don't get interrupted is ourselves. We can't depend on other people to stand up for ourselves and defend us. Who's going to stand up and say, oh, excuse me, Nim hasn't finished, let her finish speaking? Not very many people. So we have to take accountability for our own personal brands. So hopefully that answers your question. And Radhila says, thanks. That was a useful tip. Thank you. Hi, Philomena. Thank you. I interrupt a lot. Okay, Philomena, that's very sweet of you to say that. The reason a lot of people interrupt is not necessarily for any malicious reasons. People interrupt because, they get excited and they want to share their own opinions, and they have so many ideas that they want to share. So people interrupt for different reasons. But those who are being interrupted need to take responsibility and make sure that people don't interrupt them in future. Alrighty, so that's it from me today. I am deeply passionate about this topic, as you can all tell, because I realized a long time ago that the only way to get ahead in your career is to make yourself visible in the workplace, is to make yourself noticed, because a lot of promotions happen during networking events where sort of all the movers and shakers are discussing things. And if you want your name to pop up in their minds when they're thinking of someone in a leadership role, if you want your name to come to their minds when they're discussing who's going to lead the next project, then you've got to be visible. You might have all the degrees in the world, and you might be coming on time and going home on time, or you might be working overtime, or you might be meeting all your deadlines. Great. But you're not going to get ahead unless and until you develop that kind of personal brand that is recognized, that is remembered. And the best way to be remembered is to actually have a voice and to express it. Now, in the beginning, you're not going to be very good at it if you haven't been speaking up. So don't put yourself under great pressure and compare yourself to people who've been doing public speaking for years. If you were to look at any public speaker at the start of their journey, they might have been pretty bad. Okay, so don't compare yourself to people who are miles ahead of you in a particular skill. It's very important that you understand, in a particular skill. They are not miles ahead of you in every walk of life. They may be miles ahead of you in a particular skill. So if you only started practicing public speaking a week ago, you cannot and must not and should not compare yourself to someone who's been practicing public speaking for the last 10 years, because that's unfair to you. If you were to compare yourself to that person when they were just a week old into the art of public speaking, you might feel so much better, because you might actually be better than that person was all those years ago. Okay? And Amit says, what if interruption occurs in virtual meetings? Again, it's the same thing, Amit. I have people interrupting in virtual meetings as well. The same rule applies. You can, if you have the icon for raising your hand, you can raise your hand. And if you find that everyone's ignoring that, you just have to grit your teeth and have your voice heard and say, I'd love to listen to that. And before we go to that point, can I quickly express my opinion or my insights on this? It always helps when you formulate it as a question rather than as a statement. So let me give you an example to clarify that. Me saying, I haven't finished speaking yet, is a statement. Me saying, can I complete my thought first, is a question. When you express it as a question, I have personally found in my personal and professional journey so far, when I express my thoughts as a question, typically people are more willing to listen than if I put it forward as a statement. There is a mistaken assumption among people that we sound more confident and more in control when we make a statement. I don't believe that is true. Sometimes it can be misunderstood. Sometimes it can rub people the wrong way. Sometimes it can, sound like an order you're giving people. So it always helps when you formulate it as a question. That has been my personal experience. So Amit, to answer your question, virtual meetings or physical meetings, whatever the case may be, the same rules apply. You have to start practicing telling people who are interrupting you in very subtle ways that they are interrupting you. So you don't actually say, excuse me, you're just interrupting me. You could say, look, I really want to listen to everything you have to say because you always have some great ideas to share with the team. But before we go off in that direction, can I quickly say what I have to say? Initially, it will be trial and error and it will be quite clumsy. But over time, people will get used to the fact that you can't interrupt Amit, for example. Okay, so I better run because it is 4:45, and as always, a 20-minute conversation has gone on for 45 minutes, but that's because I love all of you so much and I enjoy spending a part of my Sundays with you. Before I go, I just want to make a little announcement. For many, many years, I've had an exclusive program called Communication Skills Mastery. And that was a program I only offered one-on-one. So lots and lots of clients have done this program with me over the years. You'll be able to read testimonials from my past clients on my website. The thing is, I've had lots of people who have reached out to me and who've asked me if that's, something I could do even as a group. So I finally decided to offer Communication Skills Mastery program as a group program for the very first time. It's going to be a 3-week program. And I'm going to announce the dates, times, prices, everything very, very soon on my website. But I was so excited that I thought I'll share that with you today. Just a sneak peek into what's coming up. So that's it from my end for today. I hope you've all enjoyed it. More important, I hope you've gained some value from it. And I wish you all the best in speaking up in meetings. Trust me, even if in the beginning you're not very good at it, it's only a matter of time before you master it, right? And when you do, please drop me a line and let me know all the little success stories that come your way. That's it for now. Have a fabulous week ahead. I'll see you very soon. Bye.